Time now for the Saturday special on AM 1080 KSCO.
Josh Stevens.
MZ, Michael Zwerling.
Hi, Josh Stevens. How you doing?
Wonderful. Yourself?
Good. May I ask you a personal question?
All right. What you got?
Are you wearing a mask?
I am not, actually.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure whether you are violating the law by not wearing a mask, because you are talking to thousands of people.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that's already I'm interacting with thousands. That might be a gathering. That might be dangerous now.
So, but it's questionable here, and so we got the perfect guest to help us answer that question, to decide whether you are in compliance or not. I am not wearing a mask. I'm at World Headquarters, which is in San Francisco, originating the program here. And I don't think there is a rule that requires people inside their homes to wear masks yet.
Possible.
Although I think they're working on it. But anyhow, so that'll be one of the first questions we ask Chief Mills. And we also have the mayor of Santa Cruz on the program here with us here. So stay tuned. But first, let's talk to Dave Michaels. Hi, Dave Michaels.
Good morning, MZ. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Good. It's good to hear you.
You're there in the Dave Cave for your typical Saturday 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. stint, yes?
That's right. Yes, every Saturday from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. I will be out there in the Dave Cave. You can order your longevity products, order them or pick them up. Of course, we practice social distancing, MZ, so you cannot come within 6 feet of the building because we have just installed an electric fence around that part. So that's impossible. We'll just throw the product at you, and you just, throw in your order forms, and we throw the product back at you.
And people are appreciating that,
Sure.
Because we extend courtesies and respect, and we care about everybody here. So
every Saturday, MZ, 10 a.m. till 2 p.m., you can also pick up your KSCO and Flight 1080 gear as well.
Do you think that people are effectively beefing up their immune systems?
I think so. I mean,
that's what we hope, right?
Right. That makes good sense no matter what time of year it is and no matter what you're facing. It makes sense to take care of your immune system. That's just a no-brainer.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so have a good one.
I'm excited, MZ. This is going to be great. I'm out there at the Dave Cave every Saturday from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m.
Sounds great. Okay. Well, have a good one, Dave Michaels.
Good morning. A brighter day is here. Good morning. May we bring you cheer.
We've got time, we've got tunes, we've got time, tunes, and temperature.
Get up and go, it's today, on KSCO Radio.
Hey, good morning, Monterey Bay, Silicon Valley, San Francisco Bay Area. MZ is proudly welcoming you to hour number 1 of the KSCO Saturday Special. I think we're going to live up to our name today because we got a couple of really great special guests, at least for the first hour, and we'll see how it evolves. So do stay with us. I think you'll be happy you did.
Good morning. Now stay right here on KSCO Radio.
We all know what's going on in Minneapolis and in many other parts of the country. Violence as a result of the killing of a black person by a white police officer. And I want to welcome Santa Cruz City Police Chief Andy Mills to the Saturday Special. Welcome, Chief Mills.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate the invitation.
It's my understanding that Santa Cruz Mayor Justin Cummings is also with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me this morning.
Hey, welcome, Mayor Cummings. I don't think you and I have ever spoken, but it's about time we did. So, Anyhow, wow, what is going to happen next in our country? I mean, it's just the finest minds of Hollywood couldn't come up with a better script than what's happening in real life these days. And I know, Chief Mills, you have been very active on social media, on Facebook and Twitter, with your thoughts about what is going on. Why don't you share those thoughts with us here on the Saturday Special, and we'll open up the phone lines a little later.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. And the mayor and I just came back from a pretty large demonstration protest in Santa Cruz, where hundreds of people gathered to take a knee at 9:25 a.m. To remember the death of George Floyd. And typical Santa Cruz, it was peaceful, it was respectful, and it was in the best traditions of what we consider this wonderful community. And people of all colors, ages, political stripes. It was I think, a very healthy outpouring of spirit and emotion. And so that's I think that speaks volumes.
Right. So, Mayor Cummings, first of all, you've been mayor for how long? I apologize. I should know this, but I don't. And it takes a big man to admit that he's not well prepared.
Yeah, no,
or a little man, I guess. So.
Yeah, I was sworn in December of 2019, so just about 6 months now.
And you were on the you were elected to the Santa Cruz City Council when?
In the election of 2018.
Okay, so you were a council member for a year, and then you became the mayor. Okay, so how does Santa Cruz fit in? Chief Mills just reported that it was a fine, respectful demonstration today. And we wouldn't hope for anything less than that, obviously, in our town. But why is it that there are, in each of your estimations, is there such violence going on in so many other parts of the country? And Chief Mills.
Okay, I didn't know which one of us you wanted to go first on this. Well, from my perspective, and talking to people around the country, I think there's a couple things going on. One, there's a lot of pent-up frustration, and of people who see injustice. And let's face it, there have been many acts of injustice where people were killed. And as a result, I think that years of what people consider profiling, being stopped regularly, has boiled over, and this was a touch point. It was visible, it was visceral, and it was a flat-out act of murder, in my opinion.
Oh,
and
absolutely. So I don't think too many people would disagree with that.
So I think the outpouring that you're seeing is a result of years of pent-up frustration.
Right, and every time there is a similar circumstance, I think I wouldn't be surprised if the reaction gets more intense. Sort of like school shootings. I mean, it's just what do you do? What can you do?
Well, I think there's several things that must be done. I'd like to get the mayor's take on this as well. But one is the police have to do better, and we have to be in a position where we view everybody as a fellow human being. I can't know the internal motives of the officer who did that, but obviously he did not view that person that he was kneeling on as a human. I mean, I wouldn't kneel on an animal that way, let alone a human being. And so policing has to do better, whether it's training. We've trained till we're blue in the face. I think it's really more of an issue of we got to reach down into our souls and figure out who we are as people.
Well, how do you do that? I mean, I don't know I don't know what to say. I mean, I think back to several years back when we lost two Santa Cruz police officers, on Brant's Authority, when they went to approach somebody at their house and they ended up dead, just shot through the door. How can you what can be done? I mean, you just got to know about those things. Now, what kind of police training is there? Any additional police training on sensitivity or whatever is happening and can happen?
Well, we've done quite a bit over the years in Santa Cruz, and we're continuing to do more. But a couple things I think are worth noting. One is we are doing implicit bias training. Sometimes you have biases that you just don't even recognize, no matter who you are. And there's a brilliant book written on that by, I'm trying to remember her name, Dr. Everhart from Stanford, Unconscious Bias. And I think that, it is true that each of us bring our history, our upbringing, our everything to this profession. And sometimes it's reinforced, and sometimes those biases are strengthened. And so we've got to make sure that we're not doing that. We've also really focused on what we're calling tactical de-escalation. That we don't have to use lethal or massive amounts of force. We can slow these things down through time, and talk, and tactics to make sure that we're using the least amount of force possible. That is not always possible. But we can work to make sure that we are not injuring people or killing people through use of force. And then we're also teaching intervention, that if you see an officer that is out of control, that you've got to intervene. It is your responsibility. And I've just done an email out to my entire department and told them, if you see it, you own it. In other words, you just can't stand by and say, oh, it wasn't me, it was that guy. You own it just as much as the person who did it if you fail to act. And that resonates loud and clear with our cops. And I think that one of those other officers at that scene had intervened, George Floyd would not be dead today.
I agree. Yeah. Mayor Cummings, what do you think the council can do, to ensure these things? I mean, how can you ever ensure that things like this won't happen? But I think they're less likely to happen, thank God, in Santa Cruz, where we don't have that kind of a angry population. As Chief Mills expressed, the peaceful demonstration today is so typical of Santa Cruz. But is there anything that the city council can do, or do you feel should be done, given what has happened in Minneapolis?
Well, I think the one thing that Santa Cruz benefits from is that we're lucky to have a police chief who is taking this seriously and, is letting his officers know that they're going to be held accountable. And I think that is something that has been lacking in a lot of other police departments throughout the United States. When you have, officers who, on video are shown killing an individual and then they're not charged at all and they get paid administratively, what is that, what message does that send to the community? And when people, for generations and decades have been experiencing that kind of trauma, I think now it's at a point where, it's blatantly on video. You need to do something about it. And, I will give credit to to Minneapolis, to the mayor and their police force for immediately firing those 4 officers, because that is the first time I've seen something like that happen. And I think that moving forward, the more that we can hold, officers accountable and officers can hold each other accountable, the less we'll see this happening.
I certainly agree to that. By the way, if you want to call and participate in our program today on the Saturday special, the phone number is, as always, area code 831-479-1080. And that'll hook you up to our system here on the air. And if for some reason you want to make a comment or ask a question and not go on the air on the telephone line, you can use my email address, which is mz@ksco.com. mz at ksco.com, or 831-479-1080 if you want to go on the air. I see we got a number of calls coming in right now. We still have one or two open lines, but they're filling up fast. So this is not every day that you get to talk, that you get a twofer on the Saturday special. The mayor and the chief of police of Santa Cruz. So anyhow, let's take our first caller here as soon as I can figure out how to do that. Okay, Rory in Watsonville about riots. Rory, welcome to the Saturday special with Chief Mills and Mayor Cummings. You're on the air.
Yes, thank you for letting me call in. And I just want to say that as bad as that video was, and the fact that that guy lost his life, Floyd, there's no excuse for the absolute lawless rioting that's starting. It's being allowed. It should never have been allowed to get this far. What we were seeing is a complete stand down by police departments in different areas, and I pray that never happens in our county. I'm in South County, but that's what allowed the Rodney King riots to get out of control. The LAPD stood down, and there was tremendous loss of life and property that had nothing to do with Rodney King, and we're seeing it repeated. And I heard that the city of Minneapolis said roughly 75% of the people that have been arrested were from out of town. They weren't even from Minneapolis. They're paid agitators, Antifa, commie groups, whoever they are, and they're creating this mayhem, and it's got to stop. And I was just curious, what would you, Mayor and Chief of Police, do in Santa Cruz if we had another outbreak of the ransacking of downtown Santa Cruz like we saw, 10 years ago, when they ran down Mass and broke windows, Del Williams Jewelers, other businesses were vandalized? Are you guys prepared to stop this before it gets going?
Mr. Mayor, do you want to start, or do you want me to?
Sure, I can address that. Yeah, I think what we saw today was, the way that Santa Cruz views protesting. We had hundreds of people. They all gathered. They socially distanced. They took a knee, at 9:25, and then people, marched up and down Pacific Ave for a little while and went home. I just don't see that as being a part of the culture of our community, and I think that in some of these other communities, the tension between the police officers and those communities, when you have communities of color that are policed by white police officers, and you see things happening on a daily basis where people are being, their rights are being violated, they're not being treated the same as other people who are not people of color, that's when these tensions build and you start to see rioting, because people are so fed up with the injustice within the system. And, in Santa Cruz, I think we do a lot to try to make sure that we're treating everyone equally. We can always do better, but I think that given the way that in the relationship between our police and the community, I don't see that this is something that would happen in Santa Cruz.
Chief Mills.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that's well stated, and I think the best preventive tool for any type of civil unrest, as well as stopping these killings, is to have an actual relationship with the community. There's a lot of police departments who have an in-name only community policing, neighborhood policing effort. And I am proud to say that Santa Cruz, we actually work with the community, and I think that's important. But we are prepared, fully prepared, to make sure that there are not rampant acts of violence and vandalism in our city. And that is not something that civil society can tolerate, and we will make sure that we do what we can to prevent that.
Good. One last comment to the mayor. I saw plenty of white people in L.A. Vandalizing those CHP cars when they were on the 101 freeway trying to stop traffic. I think you have to address the fact that we are dealing with agitators that are designed to try to bring it all down, man, and destroy the structure of our society and justice. And justice system will deal with those officers in Minneapolis. The last question to Chief Mills is, have you ever considered using a non-lethal net as a way to de-escalate a violent suspect or somebody that's being, arrested. I think the use of nets would go a long way to, at least on a one-on-one basis, get a person tangled up so they could be subdued without all the struggle. Have you ever considered using nets on individuals?
Just a historical fact. Back in the 80s, when I was a much younger cop, we actually had deployed capture nets, and they didn't work very well, and they were logistically very difficult to use and to carry and to deploy. There's now a thing called a bolo wrap that has been being deployed in some agencies. There's some testing going on. The person has to be pretty static for that to work. They can't be moving. So we're looking at lots of different kinds of technologies. But maybe in the near future, there'll be a drone that can drop a net on somebody.
There you go. Now you're thinking. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and I'll continue to listen. Take care. Thank you, MC.
Okay. Thank you, Rory, for calling 479-1080. That does open up one line, but all the others are jammed here. Josh Stevens, I think you had something to you wanted to ask or contribute here to that?
Yeah, sure thing. So I wanted to ask Chief Mills, what are some of the tactics in which your department has taken in order to ensure quality public relations with your constituents?
Well, that's a great question. There's a variety of things that we are currently doing and have been doing for the last couple of years. One of which is we actually go and have large community meetings where we sit down with the community, listen to them, talk about their priorities. We have one scheduled just before COVID hit that we had to cancel. We also, for the first time, is my understanding in decades, opened up the police department for people to come in on National Night Out, where people actually walked through the building, were able to touch and feel and see what we're working on. There's been long-standing programs such as ride-alongs, and we send officers to community events. But the most important thing one can do as a police agency is to work shoulder to shoulder with the community solving crime problems. That's our neighborhood policing program. I have 3 sergeants assigned to different areas of the city, and they've got a bunch of officers and community service officers and rangers below them. And what they do is they go deal with community problems, work with community members, interface with them directly. And that's how you build capacity, and that's how you build relationships with people. Beyond that, we have a Chiefs Advisory Board that I meet with to help people give me the opportunity to measure what's going on in our community and give me input and direction, as well as oversight of our internal affairs operation by an independent auditor. So that's just the tip of the iceberg, but a variety of things are going on.
And a couple that came to mind pre-COVID was coffee and a cop and ice cream with a cop. What are the 2 differences between those events?
Well, there's really no difference between those events. It's just an opportunity for us to be face-to-face with people and to interact and allow people to have the opportunity to speak freely and have direct access. You know, when I came here, one of the things that started was having open office hours so that anybody from 9 to 10:30 on Monday mornings can make an appointment, come in, sit down, and tell me anything they want. And sometimes I get awesome information from people, how they're feeling about our community, about the department. Sometimes I get complaints. And sometimes it's just people that just want to sit down and chat for a few minutes. It's having access to the police officers is the key element, and we need to do more. But we're heading the right direction on that.
And then finally, what would you say to those who get nervous interacting with authority? Like, take, for example, somebody who gets stopped and asked for directions by a county sheriff, as an example.
You know, it's interesting because my wife, who's standing in the kitchen making brownies for my officers, tells me that when she gets stopped or when a police officer pulls up behind her, she still gets nervous, even though she's been in this business for 40 years.
Wow.
And because there's the level of authority and that we can have an impact on people's lives. And so what I would suggest to most people who get stopped is to just, first of all, listen to what the officer has to say, follow the directions, and things will be okay. If you have a problem with how we perform, you are always welcome to call my office directly, and then we'll look into it and measure what happened.
All righty. Thank you, Chief Mills. And then Mayor Cummings, I had a couple questions for you as well. You there?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's see. So first, in your time on the council, what would you say is your greatest achievement in terms of policy or mediation or anything of the like?
Oh, wow. There's been a lot that's happened on the council. Working with my colleagues, we, increased the inclusionary housing to 20% of new developments. We have decriminalized the use of entheogenic and psychedelic plants and fungi. We last week were able to extend our rent moratorium, our eviction for tenant and commercial businesses moratorium. So that was going to expire on May 31st, and we actually got an extension to June, so we can review, how policies are changing on the COVID. To get to one of the points that you brought up earlier with what council can do, around kind of removing bias and discriminatory practices with police agencies. I've been working closely with the police chief on prohibiting the use of predictive policing, which is shown to be biased, and also live facial recognition, which is shown to misidentify African Americans and Asian Americans. They're 100 times more likely to be misidentified. So still, work in progress. Obviously, there's been a bunch of tension on the council, which has kind of made it difficult for moving some of our policy forward. And COVID-19 kind of really threw everything off. But we're still kind of working on a lot of good policy that we hope to bring forward soon.
And on that note, what has been your biggest challenge as mayor? I know COVID would probably be the easiest answer, but what's your biggest challenge, would you say?
I would say that one of the really hard things has been going from being mayor to having a recall election to then having COVID-19 and now trying to figure out how to continue moving forward. So there was a lot of tension on the council before the recall election, and then once the recall election happened, we got slammed with COVID-19. So it's been really difficult to kind of build relationships, get policy moving forward when there's been so much tension. And now, we pretty much had to shut down almost for the past 2 months.
My goodness. Wow. Well, thank you for answering those questions.
Let's go back to the phone lines now and take the next caller, which would be Daddy Bird, the forensics of the death case. You're on the air.
Yeah, I just was wondering, the guests that you have on there, including the chief and that mayor and the rest of them, there's already medical reports about what the cause of death was, and it doesn't have anything to do with having a knee on his neck. So you guys are acting like you don't know reality.
What?
Who said what?
MZ said what?
You're acting like you don't know reality. What about the medical report?
Well, tell us about do you know about the medical report, Chief Mills? I don't know about it, but this caller says same claims.
The medical report, sir, says that the death was caused by pre-existing conditions, including heart disease and a bunch of other stuff, and stress, and possible chemicals in his system that caused his heart, had something to do with stopping his heart. You can't just ignore that.
And nothing to do with having
nothing to do with the neck. There's no evidence of neck movement at all.
I'm just gonna get rid of this caller. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
I've seen some information about that on the internet. I've not read the autopsy report, but I can tell you this: that in no police procedure anywhere in this nation does it permit somebody to kneel on somebody's neck for 9 minutes or 7 minutes or whatever it was. And if you restrict somebody's blood flow to their head by kneeling on their neck,
callers like that give talk radio a bad name. I'm just ashamed. I'm ashamed that we put that call. I didn't know what the guy. I shouldn't be ashamed because the guy uses the name Daddy Bird. Doesn't even give his real name. He's probably ashamed. Anyhow, so now I'm ashamed, and I apologize to both of you.
No.
And the audience. I don't want that guy on the air ever again. I really don't. I think he drags our station down. So,
can I just comment on what the mayor's biggest achievement has been so far? That question that Josh had. And that is, he's kept a steady hand, a calm, steady hand through this entire COVID process, as well as the recall. And that has been helpful to calm the organization. And if he walks away from this job as mayor, I think he can look back with this great sense of pride that he has been a steady hand in the midst of this. He and Martine Baralbo.
Okay. Let's take our next caller. That would be Gabriel in San Jose about police training. Gabriel, you're on the air.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I won't go as far as Daddy Bird and start accusations and the internet and all that. My question is for the chief. He had mentioned that he has never put his knee on the back of somebody's neck. I believe that. But me having a little bit of a criminal history, I have been in that situation where I have resisted arrest. I weigh 135 pounds. I'm 5'11". And when I was taken down, that move was used on me. That move was used to hog tie me, to strap my feet. So 2 cops on my front end while the other 2 try to straddle my feet or handcuff them or whatnot. In the video, we can't see the other 2 cops from that angle on what they exactly are doing for 9 minutes, why it took that long. But I believe that move is taught that's just my belief. I want to hear from, the horse's mouth as to why that is actually taught.
Okay, so
that's my question.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, and it sounds like you were a handful at one point in your life, but you're
yes,
asking some reasonable questions now. And I have fought with people on PCP or meth or both, and even 135 pounds can be a heck of a fight. So what we do use is body weight to pin people to the ground. The body weight can be on the upper shoulders because that's where the strength of the person is. But you're taught in training to avoid the head, neck, heart, spine, and kidneys because that's where damage can take place. So we focus very much. Now, in the heat of the battle, could somebody for a very short period of time miss the upper shoulders and land on the neck? It's possible. But any reasonable cop is going to adjust quickly and get off the neck.
Okay. And the second part, or more of a question, for the people or the officers that have grievances filed against them, going forward in the future, in the past they're usually administrative leave, paid leave, or whatever. But when they do come back to work, is there something implemented where, i.e., the chief or a supervisor does a ride-along with them to ensure that, the public is safe from this type of individual?
So it depends on the circumstance, certainly. If you're talking about an officer-involved shooting where somebody is shot and the person's been out for a longer period of time, and sometimes it's not unusual. If it's questionable shooting, they could be out for as much as a year. Then frequently we would put them back with a field training officer to make sure that they're put together correctly. Second thing we do is we send them to psych services to make sure that psychologically that they are ready to go, that they are thinking correctly, and that there aren't any barriers that should prevent them from being out in the field. But to ask if the chief of police or a ranking person is going out with the person, not necessarily.
Okay. That's all my questioning. I appreciate everything you guys do, and stay safe out there.
Great phone call, Gabriel. Thanks for calling 479-1080 and area 831. Our next caller will be Joe in Scotts Valley about police tactics. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you for taking the call. And, my question, I'm going to ask it very respectfully. We had in Scotts Valley last weekend, we saw firsthand how the Santa Cruz SWAT team works. And for the most part, they did an amazing job. But there was a couple of things that I saw that bothered me, and I'd like to ask the chief about it. One, the suspect didn't resist. cooperated fully, yet he was taken, yet after he put his hands up, he continued to point the guns at him instead of bringing it down to the ready. And I really don't understand why you would want to point so many guns at somebody who's cooperating rather than just bring it down to the ready. And, he was doing exactly what the police officer said. That's really my main point. But there's a couple other things that happened that I'd like to mention them. But if you can please answer this one first, I would really appreciate it. And I want to understand it better because, accidents can easily happen and they have happened in the past.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. I think there's a couple things going on here. One is it was a high-risk warrant service. I'm familiar with what you're talking about, where our officers were after a person that was fairly high risk. It dealt with a lot of weapons, and so they were out there to serve a search warrant on Sunday, and that's why they were out there. The reason that you point your weapon at somebody in a high risk environment like that is because you do need to be ready. It's not infrequent when you're taking somebody down, especially who has a lot of guns, that people have guns on their body, whether it's a small 38 or a smaller caliber handgun that fits in your waistband that you can grab and draw, or an ankle holster or one on the back of your shoulders. I mean, there's a variety of places that can be. And so there's a piece of training. It's called the OODA loop, where you have to observe, orient, make a decision, and then react to it. And there's a process that takes time. It's just like hitting your brakes if you're driving. You're driving too close to somebody and the person in front of you, and they jam on the brakes. Well, for you to go through that OODA loop to apply your brakes, avoid hitting them at a high speed, then you can't react that fast. So that's why the officers don't take it to the low ready in those environments. Those are specifically trained officers with a great deal more training than most. And the purpose of using that team is to prevent any overreaction or the use of force if we can possibly avoid it. And that's why that team was in place.
With all due respect, Chief, it takes less than a split second to, and I understand you have to reach for your gun, but it takes less than a split second to take your gun from pointing at the ground to pointing at the guy, and a lot less time than somebody trying to reach for something if they stop listening to you. I honestly think you guys should revisit that because it scares me to know that somebody, is cooperating with the police fully with their hands up way in the air and still has multiple guns pointed at them. It's out in the woods. A tree could have dropped. Anything could have rattled the police officers that could have made them pull the trigger. It's a scary. If you have your gun out as a police officer, it's a tense situation. The second thing, and this is kind of minor, and it's your call, and I understand it. But to people watching, because this happened to a neighbor, right? To the people that are watching, to see this person. By the way, nothing was found. He wasn't arrested. I don't know where the investigation will go. I don't know the exact story. But they had him in the car, even though he was cooperating. They had him in the car handcuffed for 3.5 hours, tight handcuffs for 3.5 hours while they searched the property. And then after they were done, and this is kind of the icing on the cake, they were kind of high-fiving themselves, like, "Oh, great job," Like, great job, what? I mean, come on. You have this guy in a car for 3.5 hours handcuffed. You found nothing. You ransacked the place, which is okay. I mean, you have a search warrant. There was something there. I understand you have to look for it. But if you don't have anything on the person, if he's just a suspect and he's cooperating, why would you do that? I don't get it. I mean, it doesn't make you guys look good. And we want you guys to look good, right? I don't get it.
Okay, Joe, let the chief answer, please.
Yeah, you're making a couple of assumptions. That one, we didn't find anything. I'm not going to go into what we found. It's an ongoing investigation, but I can tell you that that's not the case. And B, I will take a look at why he was kept in the car for 3 hours. Was he being interviewed? Was he with a detective? Was he? I can look into that. because I think that's a long time to sit in a car without using the restroom and a variety of other things. And I appreciate your perspective and your opinion on that. And we can certainly take a look at those systems.
Okay. Thank you, Joe, for calling. Next caller is Gray and Aptos about the shooting. Go ahead, Gray. You're on KSCO.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Just fine.
I said shooting. I was meant to say about the person being that died with the knee in his neck or something.
Okay.
I've seen before where officers put the knee to the head, which to me isn't bad because you're not squeezing too hard. But when you need to control the body, you can do that. That's what I used to see officers do that in Fresno with no problem. They're not choking anybody. But what I've noticed here in Santa Cruz, or Santa Cruz County too, I don't believe in sugarcoating things, but I think it's a lot of lack of respect either way. I noticed some officers, like either they're racing down the street in this fancy sports car without lights and sirens, or they're going after maybe people that just like look homeless or things like that. I volunteer at Food Not Bombs, and some people don't like them, but I've heard that, they're being harassed by the police department. So I just think it's the lack of respect, and I wish that Santa Cruz Police Department would respect everybody more. I was even I had a personal incident where somebody called the police. I didn't do anything wrong, and they told me to sit on the nasty ground or he would throw me down. And so that's where you get, the lack of respect, the bad reputation.
Okay, well, thank you for your opinion, and I certainly will consider that as we talk to and train our officers.
Yeah,
Okay.
One more. Are you still there?
Go ahead, Gray, real quick, okay, because we've got a full board of callers.
Yeah, I hope the police department and the mayor and the city council can get along better with Food Not Bombs. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, next caller is Wendell in Reno. Police ride along. Go ahead, Wendell. You're on KSCO.
Yeah, a few years back, I did a ride along voluntarily. It was about a month before the two officers got killed in Santa Cruz, and I did it on a Saturday night. I went to a police station, asked if I could do a ride along, and the chief set me up with an officer. And I just want to say it was so informative. I got to sit in the squad car for over 4 hours, and we drove around through the neighborhoods, and I saw what a professional officer. He used all the right techniques. He was very polite to people. He took a lot of verbal abuse. We were questioning some people at a park, and they called him every name under the sun, and he didn't, he showed no emotional reaction. And I had nothing but praise for him, and at the end I congratulated him. I also told him that I was really amazed at his professionalism and realizing the things that he had to go through in the course of one evening. And I suggest people, I don't know if they still allow it, but it's really a worthwhile thing if you can somehow schedule that. And I recommend people to do that if they're able, because it's a really good learning experience. And the other thing is, when I worked at the university in Santa Cruz, I took a 6-week course that was offered. It was like a Citizens Police Academy. And in those 6 weeks, I learned so many things about what the police do. And I think every citizen should really make an effort to learn the other side. What a difficult job it can be, and the kinds of things that they have to tolerate. And once again, I want to use that word professionalism that is exhibited. I did see 1 or 2 officers in the course of my life that were overly aggressive, and they really threw their weight around and their power. But those were exceptions. And I think generally speaking, most officers deserve a lot of credit. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for saying it on KSCO Wendell in Reno. Here's Steve in Santa Cruz about police staffing.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, gentlemen. I really appreciate you having them on. Thank you, Michael, for having these gentlemen on this morning. It's kind of a two-part question. What maybe the police chief could answer part of it, and then the mayor. You know, you hear all the talk now with this COVID about the state funding and the where the money's going to come from, the federal government, and we're going to end up possibly losing police and fire people and teachers. And I'm just wondering, because I know when the new police chief came here a few years ago, he had the little town hall meetings, and he talked about at any given time we only had 5 police on duty on each shift. That's what we had to draw from, which really opened my eyes. Like, how could that be? Because if 2 or 3 police have to respond to one area, that means we have 2 police covering the whole city. So with that question, I was wondering, are we up to staffing now? Chief, are we where we want to be? And is that going to be affected with this COVID, with this money drying up? Maybe the mayor knows more about that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can have the mayor, if he would like, address the money part. I'll address the staffing part.
Sure. We are right now looking at, I think, roughly a $10 million deficit, and that's going to have some implications. There's negotiations with all the labor units right now to take a 10% salary reduction, and that's something that has to be negotiated with their unions. And I think and one of the things that I'm doing as mayor is when I'm trying to reach out to our state and federal representatives is let them know, what we're facing in terms of these cuts so that we can get funds to supplement those losses. I personally think that, if the government is going to ask businesses to shut down and residents to stay home, that the government should, financially support them and compensate them during this time. We're doing that through unemployment for a lot of folks, but, there's still a lot of businesses suffering. The cities are all suffering, and I think that is the most responsible thing that can happen, but that needs to come from the federal level. So, we're putting pressure on our federal government and letting our representatives know that, hey, we're trying to do the right thing. Our citizens have done the right thing. We need you to now help us so that they don't suffer.
That sounds great. Yeah, from a staffing perspective, we were 3 away from full staffing. After a lot of hard work, we had 22 people in backgrounds, and 3 of which were lateral transfers. So we were ready to go over our budgeted staffing. However, since COVID has hit, we've had to stop that process and allow some attrition to take place. And so we're pretty close to full staffing. Where would I like to be? For a city, if you take a city of our size, at 2 officers per 1,000, which is kind of a model that many cities use, you'd be in the neighborhood of 125 officers. We are budgeted for 94, and so that's where we're at. We can make things happen with what we have and do well, and crime is continuing to trend down for the past couple of years. We want that to continue, but at the same time, it takes personnel to do that. And when we hire somebody, from date of hire to them being out on their own is about 1.5 years. And so it takes a lot of time to get new people trained and in the field. And so we don't want to fall behind if we can avoid that.
So along that line, so when you hire people and they start, is there a gauge or a metric that, like, because I'm sure a lot of these police officers are suffering from PTSD. They have to be. They're working under such incredible stress. They see things. They're in positions where their life's online. And at some point, there's got to be a tipping point. And I don't know if it's so many hours worked or if it's so many situations you've been in. If there's a metric, like at 7 years, between 7 and 9 years, we got to watch out. Is there any way that you monitor your guys like that, where hey, this guy's had 4 near misses or almost been shot, or whatever it may be. He's been at 6 domestic violence cases in a row. Maybe we shouldn't send him to one of those. Do you have any way to monitor your guys like that?
We don't. Where there's a lot of discussion and research being done on officer wellness across the nation, and including in Santa Cruz. Somebody mentioned it earlier, the Baker Butler double homicide, where 2 police officers were killed, has had an unbelievable effect on this agency, and it continues to this day, where people have and are continuing to suffer from PTSD. What we have been doing is sending many of them to a thing called the West Coast Retreat, where they sit with psychologists and psychiatrists and other first responders from all over the state to work through. It's a full week class or session, and they work through the trauma that they've had to deal with as a result of that shooting. I think we've sent 5 people through it, and it's very expensive, but well worth it in terms of helping to fix or at least understand the emotions that are behind being involved in an incident like that. And I can testify to that, and our plan is to send more and to help people. But this unseen trauma comes out in a variety of forms, whether it's alcoholism or bad attitude or shrinking back from other people and not being social. There's a variety of ways that comes out, and we try to watch for those.
Or possibly not responding how you normally would in a situation, because, you haven't had enough sleep. You've just had it, whatever reason. I look at this situation and I say to myself, how are we going to recruit police in the future? Who's going to want to be a police officer? Because that looks like a job that I don't want to do, but we need it more than anything. It scares me. It's like, how are they going to recruit police officers in these cities? I'm trying to understand, how do we help them a little more understand what these guys are going through? Because it's got to be like going to war, pretty much. To some degree, not to denounce warriors, veterans, but police officers are in their 30 years, sometimes 20 years of this stuff. So,
well, I think that's the thing we've come to grips with in the not too recent past in our industry. Is in war, you're there for 6 months, and it's intense, and it's horrible, and it's nothing like it on the planet. Policing, what you get is the constant drip for 30 years. And it's drip, drip, drip all day long. Every day you're dealing with people who are at the worst moment in their life. And it does have a psychological, physiological impact. And you put on top of it, you're working graveyards, 12-hour shifts. So it's actually a 14-hour.
Chief Mills, for a minute you were greatly reduced in volume. Don't know what happened. 60 seconds? Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have quite a number of callers, and I know you got, the chief and the mayor were only scheduled for the first hour. Can either of you stay longer and answer any of these other callers, or have you got other things planned? Chief Mills?
Yeah, I can stay a little bit longer if you have some people you want to rip through.
Mayor Justin?
Yeah, I have a little bit more time.
Great. Okay. Well, we can probably finish it up in the next 10 or 15 minutes, following 11 o'clock news. So, okay. Let me, let's see what time we have right now.
20 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. We got 20 seconds. So, yeah. Let's see. Denison, Felton, Stephen, Santa Cruz, stay put. And we will be back right after the news at the top of the hour on your favorite radio.
For local Doppler radar, we see showers all throughout the Santa Cruz County area in Bonnie Dunes, Scotts Valley, Watsonville, Santa Cruz, and even down in Gilroy and San Martin. They're going to be continuing all throughout the day. Today, expect a high of 67. Overnight temperatures down to the low 50s, and clouds will continue to linger following the showers. Time now for hour number 2 of the Saturday special right here on AM 1080 KSCO.
Josh Stevens.
MZ, Michael Zwerling.
Is it not a silver lining of sorts to have easier traffic and then easier traffic reporting during COVID?
Oh, my goodness. It is such a blessing, and I didn't even know you were going to hit me with the second personal question. You're catching up.
Okay. All right, good. So let's do the second hour.
Don't forget Jaunty now.
Oh,
hello, darling. I hate to hang up on you, but I'm sorry, baby.
Well, we're going to have more from the mayor and the chief of police of the city of Santa Cruz for about 10 minutes or so. So stay with us.
I'm sorry, baby, but I really gotta go to KSCO Radio. Bye.
Let's use the time to finish up the. We've got some sort of interference. I don't know whether it's on Chief Mills' side or the mayor's side here, but there's so much noise that it's leaking over. It's leaking over, and everybody, the thousands of people listening to us are hearing it. So that's one thing about being a phone guest. Sometimes you don't realize you're in a noisy area. So I don't know who it is, but try to keep it down a little bit here until we do until we finish up here. Here's Dennis in Felton. Dennis, you're on the air on KSCO with the mayor and the chief.
Yes, good morning, and thanks for being on the show. I'm going to try to be succinct, and let's see. I hope I couch my question correctly. And
you're not being succinct already. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah. Okay.
Just get to the point.
One thing I haven't heard, so I will get to the point, is that I think the whole reporting thing is partly due to unintended consequences of identity politics. The man is not I had an incident back in the 60s where I witnessed a crime and a police officer chasing a fellow, and they went into a store, and both the police officer and the criminal were displaying bad behavior. And that's the point I wanted to make, is that we've been so conditioned to believe that by identity politics, well, when the cop sees the guy, he doesn't see somebody who's committing a crime. He sees he sees the identity that he's been labeled with. Is that making sense?
No, it doesn't, but thanks for calling 479-1080. Another Steve in Santa Cruz, teamwork question. Go ahead, Steve.
I want to thank Chief Mills for doing an excellent job for keeping us safe through all this, and also Gail Newell as an older adult at high risk. I appreciate all the preventative measures, and it's worked. So I want to get on to my point. I think the big thing is teamwork is the weak link in the chain. When you look at that video, there's one cop that's basically acting way out of line, and he's probably completely stressed out. Maybe there was non-compliance before the video. Obviously, there was a lot going on that we didn't see previously to that little portion of video that you see on the news. The police are jacked up. They've got this guy. They're trying to control him. This guy, that the police officer that's holding him down was, of course, out of line. But the big problem was the lack of teamwork with the surrounding cops that were sitting there observing the situation without intervening. And I think what we have to recognize is every cop can blow a fuse, can lose check with his reality and his position he's in, and overexert force, make mistakes. But we need the people, the officers around him, to step in and bring it back into balance. And I'd like to hear Police Chief comment on that. Thank you very much.
Okay, Chief.
Well, I think your assessment is correct, that the officer standing there with his back to the crowd and looking at what was going on should have intervened. Actually, all three officers should have intervened and said, get off his neck. We teach intervention. Our officers understand that that's what we want them to do, and that's what they want to do. So he's 100% correct. They should have intervened, and it's part of teamwork.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Keep up the great work.
Yeah, let's go to, I think what we need to do right now is read an email that came in from Kathy. stop the rioters. Yes, the police have to do better. But I mean, and not allowing these thugs to go crazy rioting and destroying Target stores and police stations, even forcing the police to evacuate. Yes, they have a reason to be upset, but this is way beyond that. There's more to these giant organized destructive riots. They know they aren't going to get arrested or even hurt, so they do what they damn well please. They're not gaining sympathy from the public, so it's not helping their cause, so if they even have one. At this point, with no police response to these dangerous riots, we the public are afraid. Use your weapons and maybe this will stop. It's not their right to damage property. It's not peaceable assembly. Take care of it once and they'll stop. Continue to do nothing and they're going to get worse and none of us will be safe. I'm sorry, but they've taken the focus off the policeman and what he did. It's not on them, the destructive thugs who are running things their way. We have been following made-up laws under the threat of arrest for stupid things like going to the beach. We pay our taxes and follow all the laws. Thanks, Rory, for saying what I've been talking about. He's right. There were a lot of white guys in those crowds, and that's from Kathy. Thank you, Kathy, for emailing mz@ksco.com. Let's see here. Cameron and Aptos, I think, will be next. So let's take that call. Cameron, you're on with the chief and the mayor.
Thank you. I want to thank the mayor for scheduling a Zoom meeting recently with the county health officer, Gail. She double booked, and she did not listen to the public. She walked out after 4 minutes, but you were there, and I want to thank you for making that effort. And it was Zoom is something that really has changed a lot of people's lives. I want to thank you as a chief police officer for trying to connect with the public on Monday mornings. And I'd like to suggest that, what about using Zoom so that people could be able to ask the question, see you, you can see them, people can actually ask it in real time. This is a tool that everybody is using now, and it's easily used for connecting. Could both of you comment on Zoom and how you could better connect with the public using it?
Sure, I can start. It's been becoming something that's been a really good tool for us to use to do exactly what you just said, connect with the public. The chief and I yesterday were on a call, and we're working on currently having a Zoom conference on Wednesday to allow members of the public to engage with us on this topic. It's going to be an opportunity for us to talk about, what are some of the things that Santa Cruz police are doing, around de-escalation, trying to eliminate bias, and really give the public an opportunity to speak with both of us on this topic and policing in the community of Santa Cruz. So we're definitely using it more, and I've been having weekly, moving to bi-weekly Friday Zoom sessions with different departments and community groups just to highlight what everyone's doing to address COVID-19. So we're definitely trying to use it to engage more with people.
Do you have anything scheduled coming up? Like, give us a time and date and an ID number for Zoom so we can connect with you? Some real specifics?
Something should be going on Monday. We're looking at Wednesday evening, likely from 6 to 8. We just have to confirm the times. But we'll be letting the community know about that scheduled Zoom meeting between the police chief and I on this Wednesday.
If you monitor the police department's social media or the city's social media, I'm sure it'll be put out, and that way anybody can jump in.
And we'll also try and follow that and get it published on our news publication. And for those of you who do not have access to the internet, you could just call our office and we'll give you those exact phone call-in numbers or anything of the like.
Great.
Okay, I want to say thank you to both of you, but I really, this thing, talking about PTSD and about what policemen need to stay healthy. I'm a psychologist, so I understand those issues, and there are a lot of resources that are out there that are not that expensive. You don't have to send people off for a week, but in terms of addressing issues of the drip, and what the effect is on officers year in, year out, I think that should be addressed and thought more clearly. Can you comment?
Well, we also, I mentioned the West Coast Retreat, but we also use our own in-house psychologists to the city. We have counselors available for officers, and they frequently use them. So, and there's a variety of tools, and we can always, use more. I mean, we've looked at things like yoga and, meditation. I mean, there's a variety, and each person is so different. I relieve my stress by working out, and so there's people do it a variety of ways.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hey, so that'll do it for now, gentlemen. Thank you very much, Chief Andy Mills and Mayor Justin Cummings for being guests on the Saturday Special here on KSCO. I think it was a
Thank
great,
you. Appreciate for having me.
interactive programming. So take care, you guys, and have a great rest of the weekend. Okay.
Great. Thanks, MZ.
Take care. Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
So let's see the rest of the program. Josh Stevens, what should we do? Should we just let people comment on things that we can decide we approve of or not?
Of course, yeah. I don't see why not. But that's a bummer. We did have one more person who was asking, who had a couple of questions there. But I guess we could speculate on those.
He didn't call soon enough. We can pretend to be. I can pretend to be the chief, and you can pretend to be the mayor.
All right. Well.
Okay, Frank. What do you want to? What about public oversight? Frank in San Jose.
Okay. Yeah, with Derek Chauvin, I guess he had 18 complaints against him. 2 were officer-involved shooting. He was cleared on 2 of those. But what about the other 16 complaints? And my point is that all of these riots are because of what happened with him. If there was public oversight on a national level over complaints against police instead of them just handling it internally, maybe we wouldn't have the situation.
Wow. Gee, I wish you would have called sooner before we released the guest here, because it conjures up my remembrance of police review commissions that there was quite a bit of talk of in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, police review commissions and boards and so forth. And we even had one here in Santa Cruz. I don't know, maybe we still do, for all I know. Anyhow.
What was your initial reaction to all this, MZ?
To all what?
Like, for example, the Minneapolis events, as well as, say, Chief Mills' response that you saw on social media.
I was horrified, as anybody with any intelligence, I think, would be, about what happened. And I'm very proud of our chief. I think the guy's great. And
well spoken.
What I like most about him is that he likes to interact with the public. I don't know of a time he's been invited to be on KSCO where he hasn't gladly accepted.
Yeah, that's very impressive. I mean, having that level of transparency is something that we should all try and strive for and ask with not only our elected or our chiefs of police, but those that are elected or otherwise.
Right. So, San Jose, Frank, do you live in San Jose, or are you calling from there now?
Yeah, I'm calling from here. I'm also known as Crash. You know me.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the reason why I used the handle Crash is because I am personally afraid of the police, and I'm also afraid of, like, the national surveillance society we now have in place. You know what I mean? That's why I didn't want to give my real name.
Tell us more about that surveillance society you mentioned, Frank.
Well, didn't we just have, like, a couple weeks ago, Congress voted to, every year the Patriot Act is renewed.
Right.
But then this last time, there was something about the, NSA and the rest checking all of our browser searches, right?
Or like you're saying like our internet history.
Yes. Mm-hmm. See, and the thing about the Patriot Act is that, look, in the past, the police had to, in the past, our constitutional rights guaranteed that we were innocent until proven guilty, and this is just the opposite, okay? As I see it.
And that's because the authorities or the powers that be would now have unwarranted access to your internet searches or search engine history. Is
To
that where
all
you're
of
going?
ours. To all of ours. That's the point.
Wow.
That's all.
That's an
Right?
eye-opener. What's your thoughts, MZ?
I don't have any.
Oh, yes. The too technological, I take it?
I don't know. I mean, the whole thought of people being afraid to speak publicly without using their name, it's sort of, I understand it, and I'm looking at an email right now that says corrupt officer. And it's the email is from somebody that does not want their name mentioned. MZ, please don't mention my name, but how does a person intervene and stop that corrupt officer without getting hurt yourself or shot? Okay.
I'd say I should take a stab at that.
Okay.
And my take on that is that one of the best ways to do this is by simply being able to document it. Documenting it helps more than anything. Like one of the callers, for example, earlier asked if there was no video taken of the officer, of the one in Minneapolis who put the knee on the neck, like from a member of the public, would nothing have been done? And to be quite honest, I'd probably lean in that direction. Like, yeah, nothing probably would have been done, given the fact that folks have not been able to hold these people accountable in the places where accountability is needed the most, just because of the fact it's not documented. So at the end of the day, being able to get that, making that a matter of record, be it public record or just simply being able to get those videos of the rogue behavior. But obviously it can paint a biased picture at times, because you could just only see that, but not the actions that lead up to it. And it creates a balance. It creates a bit of an imbalance, but at the same time, we are able to get through this by documenting. And that's what happened in Minneapolis. Somebody had the video evidence, and they were able to hold the officer accountable, or what they believe to be accountable.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gee, we want to thank our caller from San Jose. And do you? Yes, I remember, Crash, that you've called at least once before, talking to me, and maybe more. Are you a regular KSCO listener, and you live in Santa Cruz, or do you live in San Jose?
San Jose, I've been listening for years, and I've called a bunch of times. You know, sometimes just for a laugh, or sometimes just to troll you guys. But I love your station, okay? And it's what do you call it, talkback radio? You guys really believe in free speech, and I salute you for that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I enjoy compliments immensely. Do you have any more for me?
No, there's probably a lot of people who want to talk. So
no, there are none. That's why I'm stretching it out with you. But anyhow, we the Jaunty's spot. I have it here and can play it, but you have it there. Why don't you play that one, Josh Stevens?
All right.
Okay. And I want to thank Frank, a.k.a. Crash, a.k.a. any other troll names you have, for calling, and particularly for complimenting me. I get so few of them.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Take care. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, my name is Jaunty McCollier, KSCO's Director of Digital Media. Before I say anything else, I just want to remind you, while you're enjoying the show, go to SaturdaySpecial.com, sign up for the newsletter, follow the YouTube channel, and help keep the conversation going. The concept of racism is a problem that divides the heck out of us and doesn't have an apparent solution. Telling a well-meaning white person not to have any sort of racially biased thought in the presence of a black person is like saying, don't think about pink elephants. The tendency to equate all thoughts or acts of prejudice with the worst forms of racism creates a false dichotomy. You're either racist or not a racist. Even the most well-meaning, kind-hearted monk who would not even step on an ant, who meditates constantly on love for all existence, could still have a moment of discomfort if approached by some member of the proverbial other. Yet we place them in the same category as the worst of Hitler's minions. I'm not suggesting that racism isn't a real thing and a real concern. Neither am I excusing the biased actions of the Karens of the world as inevitable. Rather, I'm pointing out that the solution may not lie in eliminating racism, but rather to address a much bigger problem that we can, in fact, solve. End hatred. I can tell you from my life experiences, which include giggling 3-year-olds, a slip and slide, and my first best friend's kombucha, growing up in a suburb of Johannesburg, South Africa at the height of apartheid, that white and black racists often act towards each other with surprising love and compassion. On many occasions, I witnessed a racist comment preceded by a kind and considerate act toward the other. There are 1,000 reasons why racial bias is wrong, illogical, and dehumanizing for both the perpetrator and the victim. But the answer to the problem of racism isn't non-racism, it is love. Would you rather be stuck in a room with a kind, loving racist or a violent, hateful non-racist? It's not psychologically possible, nor even healthy, to eliminate any and all bias from a human mind, but we can all learn to be more loving. When responding to circumstances of racial tension and racial bias, which we can't seem to get away from, it's fine to ask yourself how to not be racist, but it's meaningless if you don't first ask yourself how to be compassionate. Well, there you go, everybody. I solved the problem of racism. It didn't even break a sweat. Got any more problems you'd like solved? Email me at jc@ksco.com. Thanks again to MZ for including me in the KSCO family. I hope you all enjoy the rest of the show.
Jonty's pretty smart, don't you think, Josh Stevens?
Oh, absolutely. I actually really enjoyed his presentation this time around. Like, there was less improvisational bits and, like, I don't know. The strumming and all that was just, it was a little weird, man. I mean, I cracked wise about that last week or so. But this time, well-rounded and perfect length as well.
May I catch up even further with a third personal question?
Woo, we are aiming high today. Yes, go for it.
Are you even the slightest bit racist in any way?
Oh, man, I wouldn't say so, but I would say that it could happen on an impulse, like if you get wronged by someone. Like, for example, there's this one time I was out on one of those little red electric rental bikes that used to zip around Santa Cruz, and I was on Mission Street just trying to actually get to work over on the west side. And when I ended up going down there, there was somebody of a different race who was just absolutely mad because I was passing them on this little electric bike and they were stuck in traffic. And when I went to make my left turn onto Fair Avenue from Mission, they threw a can of Coke at me. And I was like, oh my God, this person in a Beamer is being an expletive. And I just like, yeah, and it's just on an impulse, you know, it happens. But do I take that home with me? No, heavens no.
Well, you stored it in a part of your brain that enabled you to recall it when I asked you the third personal question of the day, which I'm going to turn around and ask our audience now. See if we get any phone calls. Ask yourself, everyone, if there is any shred of racism within you.
And how do you shred it? That's the follow-up question.
Or a lot of it. You know, maybe you're a total racist. And, you know, we're inviting you to call and be honest with us. 831-479-1080.
You're going to make me grab the green card for the making sure that I'm going to have to screen callers even more now, aren't I?
I don't know. We have that dump button.
You're playing with fire, MZ. You know that.
The dump button works, doesn't it?
Oh, of course. I'm just saying you're playing with fire.
We can even take it. We can even take it without call screening. Like right now, who is this? Oh, you took it before I did.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Who is this? You're on the air unscreened.
Hey, Michael. Hey,
Yeah.
you're going after your question about, like, do we have any racism in us? And I got to admit, the more I watch the news, I think the news has started to be making me more aware not my racism, but actually making me feel like I gotta kind of defend my own.
Yeah. Is this Population Pat, perchance?
No, it is not.
Okay. You sound a little bit like him. And
okay. Yeah.
What is your name? And you don't have to give your full name. But
No. My name is Mike, and I live in Prunedale. Yeah,
okay,
let me ask you something, Michael. So, because you're Jewish, you're conservative Jewish, and I really admire a lot of the conservative Jewish people out there. And I think Benjamin Netanyahu is right up there with Winston Churchill. But listen to this. So a couple of days ago, I was talking to John Rothman and KGO News, and he was kind of coming down on white evangelicals for supporting Trump. And then I kind of called him on, like, why are the liberal Jewish people, why they should be supporting Trump after, they're naming streets after him in Israel and stuff like that. And then so when I got off the phone, they have people calling me an anti-Semitic because I'm disagreeing with liberal Jewish points. And I did bring up the Jewish.
Very interesting. John Rothman is a good friend of mine, and I'm going to call him.
It wasn't him. It was someone else that called. Yeah, and said basically that I was anti-Semitic, and I'm like, which kind of bothered me. But at the same time, hey, if they want to call me anti-Semitic, because did
John defend you, even though you were?
No, he did not. I was called a bigot after we hung up because listen, this is what I said. I heard you say it before. Self-hating Jews, there are self-hating whites, and that kind of stuff. But it's more political because I believe the liberal agenda is destroying our country, even if it's coming from a liberal Jew.
Yeah.
I'm not a bigot, but if he wants to call me a bigot because I could call out a liberal Jew on something when he's calling out conservative Christians, then that kind of irritated him a little bit. It made me want to defend a white Christian because of what they're doing, if that makes any sense. Because it's like if you're Hispanic, you could be proud to be Hispanic. If you're black, you could, look out for black interests. And I look at Jews as being white. I don't know why they're identified as something different, but why we're so different, because it's the Democrat agenda. Check this out. My wife was born. She's Mexican American. On her birth certificate in 1965, she was considered white on her birth certificate, but the Democrat Party wanted to divide us and bring up different races because it was an agenda. So I think they've created this agenda, and it's getting us all defensive, where we feel like we got to look out for our own, which is too bad. But I'm guilty of it.
Would you, Mike, like to be on a Saturday special where you are one of my guests and the other guest is John Rothman?
I'd have to go. The problem was when I'm talking to John Rothman, you know how they cut you short, you're kind of heated, and you get cut short, and everything don't come out. You don't get to explain, and then you come off looking by. Yeah.
That wouldn't happen on this program, as I think you should know.
Yeah,
and I think John would do it because John has always except when he could, when he wasn't doing something else, he's always accepted my invitation to be on KSCO. Now, maybe he won't be able to do that now that he's got another regular gig at KGO. I don't know, but I'll call him.
You had him on before. Yeah, you had him on before.
Quite a number of times. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm willing to, as long as he's let like me explain. Because a lot of times, any talk show host, they could cut you off, and you don't get to fully explain yourself.
He wouldn't be the host. He wouldn't be the host. I'm the host. He would be one of two guests. You would be the other one. Wow. But you will agree to that, and I'll ask him if he'll agree to that. Maybe he won't be able to because of his contract with KGO. Who knows? Anyhow.
Yeah, and I was just talking about one of my friends about your mother, and we were just both agreeing how she was one of the smartest women alive. So, I admire your mother for what she stood, and I told you I wanted to buy a case of your books. I drove up there before to get a case during Christmas time at 5 o'clock, and no one would answer. I went in the lobby, and no one was there. But if you still have the cases, I still want to give them out for Christmas gifts. Yeah, and I want to buy them.
And you don't have to
so,
wait for Christmas. You can give them out for any time gifts.
Well,
but a good idea always is, if you're going to come by to pick up something, is to call the station ahead of time.
Yeah, but now I'm thinking your guy that sells the vitamins, he could deliver them, and I could pay him if he lives in Watsonville
That's
anyway,
true.
because I live in
That's
Cruz.
true.
Yeah, so we'll talk further. But thanks for taking my call.
You bet, Mike, and thanks for calling.
Okay, thanks.
And
Bye.
another thing too, he actually just sparked a whole point in me. And one thing I noticed as well on social media throughout all this, those who have talked about the raising questions about how the man who died the way he died automatically get shunned and are told like just the most vile things. And then on the other hand, we've got people like one of my friends who I'd say is more on the progressive side, and they said, you know what? It makes me dislike all the liberalism of our generation where people encourage and validate this behavior, with this behavior being the act of rioting and looting and everything of the like. And it's just like, wow, I would not expect my friend to be able to wake up to this sort of like atrocity. And it's just like, that is kind of a tactic, a left-wing tactic that even I'm not too fond of, is the act of just shunning people for questioning how certain atrocities.
This is you talking or your friend talking?
This is a little bit of both, actually. But yes, my friend said like they dislike all the liberalism of our generation, where the acts of looting, rioting, and all that are encouraged. And I think that's a bit of a spicy take on the matter, and one that should be acknowledged more often.
I think it's more than spicy. I think it's sick.
Yeah.
And I believe that is the case too. Here's a is it a fourth personal question, Josh Stevens?
Oh boy, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We're going for 4.
Have your politics changed since you've been associated with KSCO?
Not necessarily, but I want to say it was maybe a slight contributor, but the one that really did it for me was right before I joined here. I took a trip out to the Midwest. And during that whole time out there, out in the rural parts, and getting to meet some of the people that tend to align with the conservative views, and be able to hear out what sorts of subjects that normally one would just meet with, oh God, kind of mentality, like, oh wow, I don't want to deal with this. But on the other hand, I actually took the time to hear them out, get a better balanced picture of the matter. Like, for example, the topic of healthcare. Like, I always thought, oh yes, having a socialist-like system like universal healthcare is like flawless. Oh wait, never mind. There's countries that are doing that, and there's the whole backup in the system where people are subject to insane wait times and everything of the like. And that's an example I can take, and that's something I heard from one of the people out there, and it was like, you know what, that actually makes sense to me. There are many flaws to acknowledge, and just that was a great chip in. And I'd say also working here did somewhat differentiate my politics in the sense of trying to be more accepting of opposing views and trying to actually listen to people and form a centralized opinion. So that is something that I do have to give this fine radio station credence or credit for.
Well, thank you, Josh Stevens. Now let's go to Zoltan. Zoltan Egarisi.
Hi, MZ. How you been doing?
Good, Zoltan. It's nice to hear from you, but can you get off your speakerphone or your Bluetooth headset maybe so we can hear you?
No, that was actually I'm on a Skype because it used to be a better quality.
Oh.
Can you hear me better now?
It's horrible. There's a hum it's just not a good It's not a good connection at all.
All right, then let me call you back on my cell phone, okay?
Okay, that'll be a little better because we won't have the hum. So, there goes Zoltan. There goes Zoltan. He will be calling back. I'm going to put the word out to anybody. He called in response to my question that I asked Josh Stevens, do you have a shred or even a speck of racism in you? Be honest. Do you have are you a racist? I'm asking every listener to KSCO right now. Are you a racist, or do you have any iota of racism within you? Ask yourself and be honest with your answer to yourself. Please call us at 831-479-1080. And we've got, 17 more minutes left to the Saturday special today. And Zoltan is back, so let's put him on. Hey, Zoltan.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Way better, way better.
All right, sounds good. Sometime one is better than the other one.
So are you a little racist or a lot racist?
Well, I don't have any problem with any race. Okay, the problem is that the government creates all these race questions. Okay, but way back in the 70s, there used to be just black, white, and I think the Hawaiian and Oriental. Those are the things I remember. Since then, you have so many variations of the race now. So they always want to divide and conquer. Now, this is the problem, what I see. Now, like a few days ago, I saw something, Latino X. Now, what the heck is the Latin X now? Because they were checking on the coronaviruses in San Francisco area. So they started worrying about how come the whites have no corona problem, but the Latinos have, Why does that have to be a racist thing?
Huh. Yeah.
All right.
That reminds me of a joke that my mom told on one of her commentaries that I've got to play, but I don't have it. I can't call it up quick enough to play today. But we're going to start playing Mom's commentaries. We have several hundred of them.
Good. Yeah, good. I was in several of those. Yeah, okay. Back to your mom. The fellow just before me, he was talking to Mom, asking about the Jewish question came up. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not racist. You're my Jewish buddy. I have good Jewish friends, and beside you too. But when it comes to, you always think back what happened to the Jewish people, during the Second World War, during Hitler time. It was, the history. What I know so far is that they tried to undermine the German economy, so they ended up, in the wrong places. Okay. Now, it seems to be that a lot of the Jewish people, they moved into the States, and some of them, they got stuck on a boat for quite a while. And finally, they were let into Canada and also the U.S.
Yes.
Now, it comes in the last few years. It looks like, we had this Nedler, the Adam Schiff, the Rosenstein, and then you had the Ukrainian investigation. Somehow George Soros is always cooking the crap. So I just kind of wonder why do they hate this country so much when this country gave them so much opportunity to make money, and they just want to control, the whole society. Because if you go back in the history, you get 5% of the people running the government. They can actually control the rest of the population through fear and intimidation. Just like right now we have this COVID-19 or the Wuhan 19.
Yeah.
So that kind of bothers me. Other than that, there are a lot of brilliant Jewish people, and the medicine would be bad shape, or the medical care, if not for many good Jewish doctors and inventors and so on. Okay, so but even your mom, okay, remember when she had some problem coming out of the hospital, she called me up, oh, Zoltan, I'm Jewish. Okay, I don't care. Okay, you ask for my help, I help you.
Yeah.
All right. I feel the same thing when it comes to the black. That I feel bad for this poor guy, up in Minneapolis. That was not necessary to do this to the guy, and but in the meantime, so many agitators got into that, and then several news places I go, and whose hand is in this thing again? Soros. Soros pays for the Black Lives Matter just to create more problem. Why? Because the COVID-19 is finally on their hand. Okay, we already know that Cuomo, the New York governor, he actually sent 5,800 old people to die. Okay, because when Trump goes there and sends in this comfort medical boat to have all the affected coronavirus affected people just to be isolated on a boat. So Fauci is talking to Cuomo every night at 11 o'clock how to cook the books. So people who were disease. They send them to this old age home. So all got cross-infected, and that's like a mass murder. So the media, instead of they should be talking about this mass murder in New York, and also the governor from Michigan, she does the same thing. Okay, so these governors, it's terrible. They're trying to control the population.
She is the most terrible person I could think of in politics in the United States.
And turns out that she was also working with Soros, and Soros also put up a lot of money to support the DAs, and including one in San Francisco. The guy is a criminal, so they tell them, open up all the jails, so we are flooded with with jailbirds, and you and I, we have to cook our ass in a home. We'll be locked up. I can't play soccer. I cannot go to, do my swimming. And it looks like they're just trying to bankrupt the large population. Okay, the self-employed people, the ones who can stand on their own. They do not need the government support. Yeah.
In answer to my question, Zoltan, are you the slightest bit, even the slightest bit racist?
No.
Okay, good. Thank you. I loved your phone call, and I want to move on, and I do have to read this very upsetting email.
Hold on, MZ.
Okay, can I just have one more thing?
Sure, go ahead, Zoltan.
I'm very glad that Trump finally got off the cesspool of the World Health Organization, which we should get out of the UN too. There's nothing more than all these haters just again the USA.
He's the greatest president that ever lived of the United States.
Thank you, Lord. We need a new Rushmore, a completely new mountain for him.
Just so people know I have an odd sense of humor, but I am not being funny when I say that Trump is the greatest president the United States has ever, and I just can't imagine how we could ever have a greater president than Donald Trump.
Because he's actually, it's like a second rebirth in our country, and we are going through historical times.
Exactly.
And we have to get rid of this UN Agenda 21 and UN Agenda 30. They're undermining
all those things we got to do, but we got so many other phone calls. I invited other people.
All right.
But Josh, I shouldn't do this to you. I shouldn't do this, but I want to give you. I just want to tell you. I just can't live with this unless I let it out.
All right, what is it?
It says quiet, Josh. And it's from George Myers. Nice hearing from the chief. Very nice guy. The second half was too much Josh. Some guys his age should be seen and not heard. He took over the whole show. What happened to the last young guys you had assisting you? I don't listen much anymore. I have health issues and usually sleep in Saturdays. You should get more guest hosts. I couldn't disagree with George Myers anymore. I think you are great, and I love the fact that you chimed in and asked better questions than I did by far. Which isn't saying much, but they were very, very good questions.
Should we do the thing we're known best for real quick?
What?
Informing the public.
Okay.
All right, quick little item. Highway 17 northbound, you're going to be down 10 minutes worth of delay. A vehicle had flown off the right-hand shoulder just at Redwood Estates, so watch out for that.
Okay, back to the phones.
And that's the as of 11:50 a.m.
Okay. Here's our next caller, Richard in Pacific Grove, about racism.
Yeah, hey, Michael, did you ever define racism or what?
No.
Oh, well, that makes it difficult because I'm a racist. Maybe I'm the only one in the entire world that's a racist. But I have to know what you mean by racist.
What do you mean by racist?
Well, I would really rather be around people that I have something in common with. Okay.
Like hating blacks or Asians.
No. See, you're putting out the hate. No. I just mean, I'm just trying to say, I
think most racism, without defining it, I probably should define it. If we're going to ask the question, but
it's got to be defined because I don't know what I really.
But I equate racism with hatred. Do you not?
No. What? If people live in a white community, are they racist? Or people live in a black community, are they racist? How's that? Why does it have to be hatred?
They might be. They might not be.
That's what I'm saying.
They might prefer to
That's what
live
I'm saying.
with people of their own color and creed, I guess.
I'd love to be on your station for an hour talking about this, Michael, because, you know, you have to be able to define it. We've never been able to define it. Nobody wants to define it. But, you know, I was in the military, right?
Okay.
Okay. Do you know normally when you got into a base and you had Army, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, blah, 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 you know what happened? The guys in the Army stayed with the guys in the Army. The guys in the Navy stayed with the guys in the Navy. I'm just saying, generally speaking. Why? Because they had something in common.
Right.
All right?
I don't think that's racist, and nor do you.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. And now anytime, you know, I think there's a proclivity for people to be around. I don't like loud music. I really don't. I don't like people that say certain things and all that kind of stuff. And so, I don't want to be around that type of stuff. But it doesn't make me a racist. I'm just choosing to be with what I'm more comfortable with. Do you understand?
Okay.
And I think that's what most people do. I've been all over the world. I've been in Japan. I've been in places where I couldn't go in there because I was a white guy. Why? Because they wanted to keep their culture. Okay? There were places in Japan, and I'm talking about in the 60s. I haven't been there recently. But I couldn't go in simply because I was a white guy. I got kicked out of a party in New York because I wasn't Puerto Rican.
Oh,
Okay?
my God. Is this you, Richard, or is this another Richard that sent me an email that says prejudice?
No, I didn't say anything.
Michael, I think you were asking the wrong question. It should be, are prejudiced. Everyone is prejudiced. If they don't admit it, they don't know themselves. I am of Italian descent. My family came from southern Italy. In Santa Cruz, northern Italians are prejudiced against southern Italians. Prejudice is the root of racism, and now there is ageism. Just terrible. Okay, thank you, Richard. Thank you, Italian Richard, for calling. Okay, and thank you, Richard in Pacific Grove. Here's Rodney in Santa Cruz about racism. Go ahead, Rodney.
Yeah, this is going to be an easy one for me because I think the answer to the question is yes. I believe that I have racism in me, but I think it's a small percentage, and let me explain why. I'm Mexican-American, grew up in communities with predominantly black and Mexican, and believe me, there's racism in those neighborhoods towards white predominantly, right? As I grew up, joined the military, great experience, worked alongside of people from West Virginia, different parts of the country, and found out they're similar to the way I think. They just eat differently, and they have other cultural things that they share. So that was a great progression for me. Then moving to Santa Cruz 25 years ago, not saying Santa Cruz is without racism, but I'll be honest with you, I love this place because more people will stand up when somebody's saying something racist than not when we're talking about white people. So, you know, prejudice, like you were just talking about, that's pretty much really what we're talking about. And so for me, being 55 years old, I've kind of grown, and I've allowed myself to understand that I'm not like when I was younger. I would react angrily if somebody was saying something or did something that made me feel like they were being racist towards me. It's all a growing thing, and that's why for me, I'll just tell you is that I'm glad that the march downtown today didn't get violent because, you know, though the people who feel that they're upset about what's going on and what's happened with the poor gentleman that was killed and it's shared on social media, I'll tell you this. I just think that this town, for me, and my experience, has been a great positive experience in the way to work out of some of the prejudice that I've had growing up as a young man. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, thank you for sharing your 2 cents here with our KSCO audience. Rodney in Santa Cruz. Take next, which is Homeless Joe in Santa Cruz. What do you have to say about racism, Homeless Joe?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, but it's very, very noisy. It would be nice if we could just hear you and not the other noise.
I think he was just picking up his phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think none of us are perfect. All of us are not racist, but we know there's a difference in all of us. So, yeah, I think we're all racist.
Even me?
Every single person, because we are not perfect. All of us who exist, we are not perfect. So there is racism. It doesn't matter. everyone is a racist.
Well, that's all you're going to say? You're not going to say why, or you're not going to give us an analysis, something deeper than that?
Okay, you're born into a family. You're all alike. You go across the world and you see the differences in people. That's prejudice. You can't help that.
No, it's observation.
We're not right. We're not perfect. And the only thing I want to say that all of us are born prejudiced. We can't help it. But one thing I will say that is true, that in God's eyes, the Creator's eyes, we are all beautiful.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't argue with that because I believe it's true. Thank you, Homeless Joe, for calling 479-1080. Here's Pat in Santa Cruz. Hey, Pat.
Yeah, hi, MC.
That's the Pat that I thought might have called before. But
No,
his voice was pretty... I know you didn't, because your voice is definitely you now.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, with racism, that implies something nasty, like you say, hatred. But depending how you define it, racism is just simply recognizing that there are different races. And the reason there are different races is because humans fall into different groups. And we just simply recognize that. Some people call that race realism. They insist, no, I don't hate anybody else, but I'm realistic about the facts that make different races different. And I think that's, I would call myself that. I would like to say quickly, because we're almost out of time here, but...
That is correct. We are out of time. But we have about 20 seconds more, so...
Yeah. I highly recommend anybody look up Colin Flaherty, Flaherty, and he will give you a entertaining understanding of what's going on behind what the mainstream media tells us about race. Colin Flaherty. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Population Pat. Apologies to Billy Sunshine. No.
Whoa.
What is going on here? Everything is going on.
Yeah, it's literally... Hold on. You want me to just do the that's all, folks?
You do it.
Yeah. All right. Here we go.